Imagine plunging into the dark, silent heart of the cosmos, where invisible threads hold the frantic, high-speed spirals of entire galaxies together against the crushing void. You are floating past ancient, burning anchors of light, unaware that inside their shimmering cores, a violent and eternal war is being waged with incomprehensible intensity. The delicate, billions of years-long balance of our entire reality hangs upon this unseen, titanic struggle between total gravitational collapse and explosive thermonuclear fire. Picture a secretive guardian that rules the colossal architecture of the heavens, bending the very fabric of space and time to effortlessly guide massive planets along their tracks. Yet, this same majestic, overarching force encounters a frustrating, invisible wall the moment we dare to turn our gaze toward the smallest, jittery building blocks of reality. It is the ultimate paradox of existence, where the elegant geometry that governs the sweeping arms of the Milky Way dissolves into chaotic nonsense under a microscope. Deep within this cosmic sea, invisible ripples from colliding abysses wash across the universe, briefly outshining every combined star while remaining entirely unseen by the human eye. We are drifting through a universe that hides its most dominant heavy substances, leaving us to navigate a world built upon a foundation we cannot touch or measure with light. The greatest mysteries of the night sky are not the brilliant burning stars we can see, but the heavy phantom presence we can only ever feel. Surprisingly, the mind-bending reality of these cosmic extremes and infinite singularities does not demand your active vigilance or your waking fear. The violent collisions of the deep sky and the quiet quantum mysteries of the microscopic realm are safely separated from this exact moment by billions of miles of empty, insulating vacuum. Your only task tonight is to simply surrender your active, racing thoughts to the gentle, rhythmic, and familiar pull of your own breathing. This quiet room is a sanctuary built upon those very same invisible universal forces, cradling you securely as the planet spins endlessly through the dark. You are safe. These wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep. If we were to look closer at the foundation currently supporting your resting body, we would find a perfectly balanced, localized pocket of that exact same cosmic harmony. Let the distant, ancient wars of the stars fade into the background as you settle deeper into the soft, forgiving surface of the mattress. Feel the soft sensation of your feet resting firmly on the floor beneath you. Feel the soft sensation of your feet resting firmly on the floor beneath you. This quiet, persistent pressure is the grandest cosmic force currently operating in the room, but it is entirely alone in its invisible efforts. Every single object surrounding you, the heavy wooden desk, the glass of water, the very walls of the building, is actively reaching out to pull you closer. Mass speaks to mass in an unending, silent dialogue that permeates every inch of the known universe. The heavy book resting quietly on the shelf exerts a minuscule but mathematically real tug on your shoulder, trying to draw you into its minuscule orbit. You remain completely oblivious to this chaotic, microscopic web of attractions because the sheer scale of the planet beneath you drowns them out. Earth's overwhelming density screams over the faint, ghostly whispers of the furniture and architecture. If you were floating in the deepest, emptiest void of deep space, completely isolated from any planetary interference, you would eventually drift toward that very same wooden desk. Gravity is not just a planetary phenomenon, it is an intimate, inescapable relationship shared by all matter. Hold a simple piece of fruit in your open hand and gently release your grip. Instantly, an invisible tether pulls the solid object downward, a seemingly mundane event that actually harbours a profound geometric truth. No matter where you stand upon the curved, spinning surface of this globe, the trajectory of that falling object points exactly to one universal destination. Deep within the planet, thousands of miles beneath the rocky crust, lies a dense, scorching core of compressed iron and nickel. Every dropped stone, every tumbling autumn leaf, and every falling drop of rain in the entire world traces an invisible line converging on that exact hidden point. The Earth does not merely pull things down, because down is an entirely relative concept dictated by your arbitrary location on the sphere. Instead, the planet pulls everything in, striving endlessly to crush all its massive bulk into the smallest, tightest ball mathematically possible. If the solid ground were not in the way, that falling apple would plunge directly through the molten mantle, accelerating until it reached the very heart of the world. Towering peaks of solid granite and basalt do far more than just scrape the sky and gather thick blankets of winter snows. These colossal rocky monuments actually harbour a staggering amount of mass, packing millions of tons of incredibly dense material into localised sections of the crust. Because gravity is simply the energetic voice of mass, these immense mountains naturally command their own localised sideways pull. Surveyors hanging a heavy plumb bob near the base of the Himalayas or the rugged Andes quickly discover a strange, subtle physical anomaly. The weighted string does not hang perfectly straight down toward the fiery centre of the Earth as one might expect. Instead, the sheer, imposing bulk of the adjacent mountain range drags the heavy metal bob fractionally sideways, tilting the vertical line slightly off its axis. This subtle phenomenon proved early on that gravity is a localised, calculable attraction belonging to the rocks themselves, not merely a mystic planetary force. A mountain acts as a massive concentration of gravitational energy, silently warping the downward trajectory of anything resting in its vast shadow. Gazing out at the vast, seemingly flat expanse of the ocean hides a massive, highly dynamic distortion occurring at the grand planetary scale. Earth continuously rotates on its axis at over 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, generating a fierce, invisible centrifugal force. This relentless outward momentum directly battles the relentless inward crushing power of the planet's own gravitational field. As a direct result, the world's oceans do not form a mathematically perfect sphere, but rather a slightly squashed oblate spheroid that bulges noticeably around the planet's midsection. The deep water at the equator stands about 13 miles further away from the Earth's centre than the freezing dark waters near the poles. Gravity fights desperately every second to pull these bulging equatorial seas back down into a flawless, pristine globe. However, the spinning momentum of the Earth refuses to yield, holding the water outward in a permanent gravitationally stretched suspension. This ultimately means a massive cargo ship sailing across the equator is technically sailing slightly uphill, riding the permanent crest of a massive spinning planetary wave. Strolling casually across a quiet room seems like a beautifully simple act of forward propulsion, guided entirely by muscle memory and deliberate intent. In reality, bipedal movement is an intricate, continuous, and highly dangerous negotiation with the planet's relentless downward drag. Every single time you lift a foot and lean your weight forward, you are deliberately and bravely surrendering your body to gravity. You initiate a terrifying plunge toward the centre of the Earth, allowing your physical form to tip precariously past its natural centre of balance. For a brief, fleeting fraction of a second, you're entirely in a state of freefall, accelerating downward just like a heavy dropped stone. Then, with precise unconscious biological timing, your swinging leg arcs outward to catch the planet's surface, forcefully halting the impending descent. This rhythmic, pounding cycle of falling and catching is repeated thousands of times a day, transforming a lethal planetary force into smooth, efficient transportation. Gravity provides the crucial downward momentum that makes walking highly energy efficient, turning your legs into inverted pendulums swinging effortlessly through the heavy air. Look up at the brilliant blue sky and carefully consider the chaotic, hyperactive nature of the invisible gases swirling wildly above you. Trillions of microscopic oxygen and nitrogen molecules are constantly bouncing, colliding, and vibrating with frantic thermal energy provided by the distant sun. Left entirely to their own physical devices, these highly agitated particles would naturally scatter wildly, dispersing permanently into the endless freezing vacuum of deep space. Gravity acts as the invisible, unyielding cosmic container that traps this chaotic ocean of air, pressing it firmly against the planet's rocky, uneven crust. The sheer, immense mass of the Earth reaches up into the freezing upper altitudes, forcefully tethering the frantic molecules tightly to their home. This continuous downward pressure stacks layer upon layer of gas, creating the incredibly dense, breathable environment at sea level that sustains all complex biology. Without this continuous, silent grip from the ground below, the atmosphere would quickly boil away in a cosmic instant, leaving a barren, irradiated rock. Every breath you draw into your lungs is a direct, life-saving gift of the Earth's immense mass holding the chaotic sky together. Billions of years ago, the nascent Earth was nothing more than a churning, molten sphere of chaotic, unsorted stardust and boiling liquid rock. In this fluid inferno, gravity acted as an agonizingly slow, planetary-scale centrifuge, relentlessly separating the heavy materials from the light. The most massive chemical elements, primarily dense iron and nickel, were brutally dragged downward through the glowing, viscous magma. This incredibly heavy metal plunged directly toward the absolute center, packing tightly together under immense pressure to form a solid, searing inner core. Meanwhile, the lighter silicates and buoyant rocky minerals were actively pushed outward, floating to the extreme surface like cooling slag on a blacksmith's forge. This relentless gravitational sorting process, known scientifically as differentiation, permanently established the distinct layered architecture of the rocky world we walk upon today. Every violent earthquake and explosive volcanic eruption is merely a minor mechanical adjustment in this deeply stratified, gravity-ordered planetary system. The solid, dependable ground you trust implicitly is merely the lightweight scum that gravity finally allowed to rest at the farthest edge of its crushing reach. A towering redwood reaching majestically into the clouds seems to directly defy the very concept of gravity, lifting thousands of tons of wood into the sky. Yet this magnificent, creeping upward journey is entirely and fundamentally guided by the tree's intimate, microscopic awareness of the continuous downward pull. Hidden deep within the damp, dark soil, the sensitive root tips contain specialized cells tightly packed with incredibly dense, heavy starch grains called statoliths. Because these tiny crystals are significantly heavier than the surrounding cellular fluid, gravity reliably and consistently drags them to the absolute bottom of the cell. The roots detect this subtle, settling pressure, utilizing it as an infallible, biological compass to determine exactly which way is down. Armed with this crucial gravitational data, the root system burrows securely deeper into the earth, while the soaring trunk shoots perfectly in the opposite direction. If a fragile seedling is accidentally knocked onto its side, the heavy crystals quickly tumble to the new lowest point, triggering growth hormones to correct its course. The entire towering architecture of a dense forest is intricately built upon these microscopic, gravity-driven plumb bobs settling quietly in the dark. Dark storm clouds gather miles above the surface, releasing heavy, freezing drops of water into a terrifyingly long, unobstructed vertical plunge. If gravity were the only physical force at play in the sky, a raindrop falling from 10,000 feet would accelerate continuously without end. It would eventually strike the ground with the lethal, destructive speed of a fired bullet, transforming a simple spring shower into a devastating bombardment. Fortunately, the falling water must forcefully push its way through the incredibly dense, gravity-packed atmosphere mentioned earlier in this journey. As the liquid droplet accelerates toward the Earth, it violently smashes into increasingly more air molecules, generating a powerful upward friction known scientifically as drag. Very quickly, the upward resisting force of the air resistance perfectly matches the downward, accelerating force of the planet's immense mass. At this precise mathematical intersection, the raindrop completely stops accelerating and settles into a steady, incredibly gentle cruising speed called terminal velocity. The devastating planetary plunge is miraculously neutralized by the very air the gravity holds in place, transforming a lethal projectile into a life-giving tap on the shoulder. Stunning video footage of astronauts floating effortlessly through the cramped cabin of the International Space Station creates a powerful, persistent visual illusion of zero gravity. It appears to the casual observer as though crossing the invisible threshold of space somehow magically severs the invisible tether to the Earth entirely. In stark reality, at an altitude of 250 miles, the planet's gravitational pull remains incredibly strong, retaining about 90% of its surface power. The floating astronauts are absolutely not free from gravity. They're completely surrendered to it, trapped in an unending high-speed freefall toward the hard ground. The crucial life-saving difference is that their sophisticated spacecraft is moving sideways at a staggering speed of roughly 17,000 miles per hour. As they continuously fall downward, the curved, spinning surface of the Earth continuously drops away beneath them at the exact same mathematical rate. They are perpetually missing the ground, locked in a delicate, high-velocity orbital dance that beautifully and perfectly neutralizes the biological sensation of physical weight. The magical sensation of floating in deep orbit is simply the terrifying thrill of an eternal, perfectly mathematically calculated drop. This perfectly mathematically calculated drop extends far beyond the metal hulls of orbiting stations, reaching out to the pale, pockmarked sphere haunting our night sky. Listen closely in your mind to the rhythmic, soothing sound of waves gently lapping against a cool, sandy shore. That peaceful, repetitive acoustic wash is the direct signature of a violent, silent gravitational war being waged across 250,000 miles of empty vacuum. Gazing upward at the glowing lunar disk, you're not merely observing a dead rock, but looking at a massive, active engine pulling at our world's liquid shell. The silver sphere wandering through the constellations possesses enough localized mass to reach across the void and physically grab the vast, dark oceans. It drags millions of cubic miles of salt water slightly out of its natural resting basin, stretching the very shape of the global seas. This relentless, invisible tether forces the water to bulge outward on the side of our planet, directly facing the pale satellite. As our globe continuously spins beneath this gravitationally suspended bulge of water, the land masses simply plough into the raised ocean, creating the illusion of a rising tide. You're witnessing the grandest, most majestic physical distortion of a planetary surface, disguised as a gentle beachside rhythm. Delving deeper into this oceanic distortion, the mechanics of this lunar grip reveal a fascinating, uneven application of gravitational force. The water positioned closest to the orbiting moon feels the absolute strongest tug, leaping eagerly upward away from the seafloor. However, the solid rocky mantle and core of our homeworld are also being pulled, leaving the water on the exact opposite side of the globe slightly behind. This creates a bizarre, counterintuitive reality where our world possesses not just one, but two massive oceanic bulges extending into the void simultaneously. One peak of water points directly toward the celestial companion, while the other stretches boldly in the exact opposite direction into deep space. The solid ground beneath your resting feet is quietly rotating through both of these stationary liquid mountains every single day. Every gentle ebb and flow upon a coastal shore is just the rocky shoreline surviving another passage through these twin gravitational anomalies. The water itself does not rapidly rush from one hemisphere to the other to create the high tide. Instead, the ocean is permanently stretched into an oval, and our spinning terrestrial sphere simply carries the continents through the deep ends of the pool. Consider the immense, staggering weight of all those global oceans continuously scraping against the jagged, uneven topography of the seabed. As the solid planet rotates furiously beneath the gravitationally locked bulges of water, a tremendous amount of kinetic friction, is generated along the oceanic trenches and shallow continental shelves. This planetary scale grinding acts as a colossal, invisible brake pad pressing firmly against the spinning momentum of our terrestrial home. Eons ago, this localized world spun with terrifying speed, whipping through a complete day and night cycle in merely a handful of hours. The relentless, exhausting friction of the lunar-induced tides has been steadily bleeding away that rotational energy into the dark vacuum. Every single century, the invisible drag of the shifting oceans adds a minuscule fraction of a millisecond to the length of our waking day. Take a slow, deep breath and feel the steady, unhurried rhythm of your own pulse resting quietly in this moment. The very passage of time on this globe is relaxing, stretching out and slowing down due to the gentle, persistent breaking of the tidal waters. Eventually, in the distant, unwritten future, this rotational decay will force our planet to lock its rotation entirely, fixing one eternal side to face the void. This massive theft of rotational energy from our spinning globe cannot simply vanish into the cosmos without a reciprocal consequence. In the strict, unforgiving accounting of orbital mechanics, the momentum bled from the churning oceans is directly transferred to the silent orbiting satellite. The dragging friction actually forces the tidal bulge to sit slightly ahead of the lunar companion, creating a forward gravitational pull on the silver sphere. This continuous, gentle forward tug acts like a celestial slingshot, slowly and inevitably pumping vital kinetic energy into the moon's orbital path. Armed with this stolen momentum, the pale rock widens its circular track, spiraling infinitesimally outward into the deeper, colder reaches of the solar system. It retreats at roughly the same biological speed that the fingernails on your resting hand currently grow. When early life first emerged from the primordial seas, the celestial companion loomed terrifyingly huge in the sky, orbiting much closer to the primordial crust. Millions of generations from now, it will have drifted so far into the abyss that total solar eclipses will become a physical impossibility. The rhythmic dance of the tides is steadily, irreversibly banishing the very partner that orchestrates the music. Transport your imagination across that widening gulf of space to stand directly upon the silent, dusty plains of the receding satellite. Because this rocky sphere contains only a tiny fraction of the mass of our home world, its downward pull is dramatically, wonderfully muted. Your physical body, entirely unchanged in its biological makeup, would instantly feel as though a crushing, lifelong burden had been magically lifted from your shoulders. Let your muscles relax deeply right now, noticing the heavy, comforting anchor of your current, familiar planetary weight. Upon that alien, cratered surface, you would weigh only 1/6 of what you do in this quiet room, transforming your leaden limbs into buoyant springs. A casual, effortless hop would launch you high above the grey soil, suspended in a long, graceful, dreamlike arc. Kicking a boot firmly into the powdery, pulverized rock of a lunar crater reveals a stunning, mathematically flawless display of pure gravitational mechanics. On our world, kicking up a cloud of dry dirt results in a chaotic, billowing fog of particles suspended and tossed by swirling air currents. The atmosphere brutally interferes, destroying the clean geometry of falling objects with unpredictable friction and chaotic, turbulent drag. Up there in the pristine, unforgiving vacuum, no atmospheric blanket exists to cushion, catch, or carry the microscopic shards of ancient shattered basalt. Every single grain of kicked dust follows an absolute, perfectly symmetrical parabolic curve, rising and falling exactly as pristine equations dictate. It arcs through the black sky like a microscopic solid cannonball, tracing a flawless mathematical line before striking the ground. The resulting visual effect is surreal and deeply unsettling to the human eye, which is fundamentally trained to expect the messy, fluid dynamics of an atmosphere. The dirt simply sprays outward in a sharp, crisp fan, unbothered by wind, and drops with the exact same unyielding speed as a heavy hammer. It is a silent, airless theatre, where gravity performs its purest, unadulterated geometric art without any atmospheric interruptions. Surprisingly, the pale satellite is not the only distant celestial engine reaching out to manipulate the liquid shell of our blue marble. The blinding incandescent star at the centre of our local system, despite being nearly 100 million miles away, commands such staggering mass that its gravitational reach touches our shores. The stellar giant exerts its own independent, slightly weaker pull on our oceans, creating a secondary set of subtle background tidal bulges. For most of the month, these solar tides gently interfere with the lunar ones, creating a chaotic, slightly dampened oceanic rhythm. However, twice during every lunar cycle, the local star, our world, and the silent moon perfectly align in a straight, terrifyingly powerful cosmic line. When these two massive gravitational engines combine their pulling forces, they yank the ocean waters into extreme towering peaks known as spring tides. During these precise astronomical alignments, the sea retreats further from the coastline than normal, exposing hidden, deep-water reefs to the raw open air. Hours later, it violently surges back, cresting dramatically higher and crashing deeper into the coastal sands with overwhelming, amplified kinetic energy. The most violent, sweeping ocean currents on our globe are secretly orchestrated by the perfect, mathematical geometry of three aligned spheres in the dark. Focus again on the solid ground beneath your resting body, feeling the absolute stillness of the foundation holding you securely in place. It is a comforting illusion, hiding the fact that our massive world is actually wobbling wildly through the dark, yanked back and forth by its dense orbiting partner. The two spheres do not consist of one stationary master and one moving servant. They are locked in a mutual chaotic wrestling match. In the unyielding laws of physics, two orbiting bodies must endlessly circle around their combined centre of mass, a mathematical fulcrum known as a barycenter. Because our home planet is roughly 80 times more massive than the Grey Companion, this invisible balancing point does not sit in the empty space between them. Instead, the incredible weight of our world drags that centre of mass deep underground, anchoring it 1,000 miles beneath the rocky crust. This violent, wobbling dance paradoxically provides the exact gravitational anchor required to foster the delicate cyclical rhythms of biological life. Our world spins on an axis that is leaned over at a sharp, precarious angle, directly exposing different hemispheres to the harsh, stellar radiation throughout the long year. This specific tilted geometry is the sole creator of our comforting, predictable seasons, shifting the global weather from freezing winters to blazing summers. Without a massive stabilizing force nearby, the chaotic gravitational tugs from the other giant planets in the system would wildly thrash that tilted axis around. Our poles could violently flip entirely toward the local star, boiling the oceans on one side while instantly freezing the dark, abandoned hemisphere. The resulting climatic whiplash would tear complex ecosystems apart, rendering the surface a hostile, violently fluctuating wasteland of extreme temperature swings. Thankfully, the immense stabilizing mass of the nearby lunar companion acts as a heavy gravitational outrigger, locking our precarious tilt firmly in place. Its constant, massive presence in the local void smooths out the chaotic pulls of the outer gas giants, preserving the gentle, reliable transition of autumn into winter. The very fact that leaves turn colour and snow falls on schedule is a direct, life-saving gift from the dead rock anchoring our sky. Peering closely at the scarred, ancient surface of the pale companion reveals a hidden, dangerous secret lurking just beneath its quiet, dusty crust. Our own planetary gravity is relatively smooth and predictable, allowing delicate satellites to orbit peacefully in pristine, unchanging circular paths for decades. The lunar environment, however, is a treacherous, uneven minefield of chaotic gravitational anomalies that actively drag spacecraft to their doom. Long before our ancestors walked upright, colossal asteroids smashed into the dead world, punching massive molten wounds that eventually filled with incredibly heavy, dense volcanic basalt. These massive, buried lumps of concentrated weight, known as mascons, create localized regions where the downward pull is intensely, inexplicably stronger than the surrounding planes. It makes the gravitational field of the sphere jagged and deeply uneven, resembling a lumpy potato rather than a mathematically perfect globe. If you were to release a probe into a low, seemingly stable orbit around the grey rock, these hidden density pockets would quickly seal its fate. Every time the ship passed over a buried mascon, it would be violently yanked downward, permanently warping its trajectory closer and closer to the jagged mountains. Eventually, the uneven, predatory gravity of the dead satellite would successfully pull the metallic interloper down, smashing it violently into the silent, airless dust. That silent, airless dust is just a tiny, insignificant speck when compared to the overwhelming, blinding ruler of our local cosmic neighborhood. Close your eyes for a moment and focus on the warm feeling of sunlight pressing gently against your eyelids. That comforting, biological warmth is the distant radiation of an absolute gravitational tyrant that dictates the fate of every single rock, comet, and cloud in its realm. The brilliant, searing sphere at the centre of our system is not merely the brightest object we can see, it is the unquestioned, dominant master of local space-time. This singular, churning ball of superheated plasma contains well over 99% of all the combined mass within billions of miles in any direction. Every other planetary body, every floating asteroid, and every distant moon combined represent nothing more than an insignificant rounding error in the local mass equation. Because gravity is entirely a function of mass, this overwhelming monopoly means the central star holds the entire system in an inescapable iron grip. The very structure, geometry, and boundary of our solar neighbourhood is sculpted entirely by the inward crushing pull of this singular burning anchor. We're all just tiny, cold passengers caught permanently in the vast, invisible web spun by the sun's tremendous weight. Those tiny, cold passengers include the majestic, diverse planetary bodies that sweep endlessly through the dark vacuum, forever tracing their grand elliptical tracks. It is easy to visualize these massive spheres as resting comfortably on some invisible track, but their true motion is far more desperate. Every single planet, including the one you're resting upon right now, is actually plummeting wildly inward, falling continuously toward the searing heat of the stellar core. The only reason these worlds are not instantly incinerated is due to their tremendous, staggering sideways velocity, born from the chaotic, swirling birth of the system. They are hurtling laterally through the empty void at tens of thousands of miles per hour, locked in a permanent, desperate race against the inward pull. As the star violently yanks a planet downward, the planet's sheer sideways momentum carries it just far enough to miss the fiery surface. This delicate, high-stakes balance between falling in and flying away creates the curved, eternal pathways we calmly refer to as orbits. The majestic clockwork procession of the celestial spheres is fundamentally a chaotic, perpetual near-miss with total destruction, smoothed out into a stable mathematical circle by the raw speed of the falling bodies. Deep within the terrifying, crushing depths of the central star, gravity abandons its role as a gentle choreographer and becomes a violent, transmutational force. Beneath hundreds of thousands of miles of boiling plasma, the inward pressure generated by the star's immense mass reaches truly incomprehensible mind-bending levels. This localized gravity is so intensely focused and heavy that it physically forces atomic nuclei, which desperately want to repel each other, into violent, unwilling collisions. The sheer, brute force of this gravitational vice squeezes simple hydrogen atoms together until they fundamentally fuse, creating heavier helium and releasing a titanic burst of pure, raw energy. This continuous, planet-sized nuclear explosion in the dark core is the sole engine driving the blinding light and comforting heat we rely upon. Gravity is not just the chain that holds the system together, It is the invisible blacksmith striking the anvil, forging the very light that paints our mornings. Without this extreme, crushing inward pressure, the stellar core would go dark, cold, and dead, leaving the surrounding planets orbiting a silent, frozen tomb. The radiant heat soaking into your skin right now is the direct biological consequence of billions of tons of gas being crushed relentlessly by its own tremendous weight. Take another deep breath, settling further into your resting state, and appreciate the silent, massive protector standing guard in the deeper, darker outer system. While the central star rules the overall structure, the largest gas giant, a swirling behemoth of violent storms and hydrogen, acts as a crucial localized shield. This striped leviathan possesses its own immense, powerful gravitational well, second only to the Sun in its ability to dictate the paths of wandering cosmic debris. The outer solar system is constantly shedding millions of frozen jagged comets and stray rocky asteroids, sending them plunging inward toward the delicate rocky inner planets. As these deadly, fast-moving projectiles dive deeper into the system, they must pass through the vast, sweeping gravitational territory of the gas giant. Its tremendous pulling force acts like a colossal, invisible vacuum cleaner, sweeping the inner pathways clean of potentially life-ending impacts. Beyond the protective bulk of the largest giant, a different breathtaking manifestation of gravitational mechanics is painted across the cold void. A stunning, dazzling disk of reflective ice and shattered rock surrounds the next massive planet, creating the most famous and beautiful ring system in our cosmic neighborhood. It is incredibly tempting to view these sweeping rings as solid, painted tracks, but they are actually a chaotic blizzard of billions of individual orbiting frozen particles. Left to their own devices, these tiny icy fragments would eventually drift apart, smearing into a dull, formless haze or crashing violently into each other. However, the crisp, sharp edges and neatly defined gaps within the glittering disk are meticulously maintained by the focused gravity of tiny hidden shepherd moons. These miniature rocky spheres orbit just at the extreme edges of the rings, utilizing their localized gravity to herd the straying ice particles back into a tight, orderly line. As a shepherd moon sweeps past, its subtle, pulling wake physically shapes the edge of the ring, pulling stragglers inward or flinging them safely away. The mesmerizing, razor-sharp beauty of these celestial halos is not a static painting, but a dynamic, active sculpture carved continuously by the precise, localized gravity of passing stones. Further out in the freezing, dim twilight of the system, a pale blue, icy giant rolls along its orbital path with a bizarre, unique orientation. Most planetary bodies spin somewhat upright like a child's toy top, their poles roughly aligned with the grand, flat plane of the solar system. This distant frozen sphere, however, lies completely on its side, rolling lazily along its orbit like a massive tipped-over barrel. This extreme, radical 90-degree tilt is not a natural, gentle formation, but the lasting, visible scar of a colossal, catastrophic gravitational collision in the deep past. During the chaotic, violent infancy of the solar system, when giant protoplanets were still wildly shuffling their orbits, a massive rocky impactor crashed brutally into the blue giant. The sheer, overwhelming kinetic force of this ancient heavy strike literally knocked the entire planetary mass onto its side, permanently altering its rotational axis. This profound, frozen wound is a stark, silent reminder that gravity is not always a stabilizing, ordering force in the dark. It can also act as the brutal, blind architect of spectacular violence, dragging massive worlds into devastating, system-altering crashes that reshape the sky forever. The sheer predictive power of understanding these invisible pulling forces was dramatically proven in the dark, frozen reaches even further from the central star. Before telescopes were powerful enough to visually spot the final, deep blue giant planet, its existence was definitively proven using only pure mathematics and a deep understanding of gravitational theory. Astronomers observing the tipped-over planet mentioned previously noticed that its actual measured orbit was behaving strangely, slightly deviating from the smooth, predicted path it should take around the Sun. The pale sphere was moving a fraction too slowly at certain points and a fraction too quickly at others, suggesting it was being subtly pulled by an unknown hidden mass. By carefully calculating the exact size and direction of these strange gravitational tugs, mathematicians boldly predicted exactly where an unseen giant planet must be hiding in the dark. When astronomers finally pointed their long lenses at that precise, mathematically derived coordinate in the sky, the deep blue sphere was sitting exactly where gravity said it would be. This incredible discovery proved that gravity is a reliable universal language, an invisible whisper that allows us to find massive hidden worlds entirely in the dark. It is a profound realization that the heavy pulling force anchoring you to your seat right now is the same mathematical key used to unlock the deepest, coldest edges of the mapped system. Near the very edge of the traditional planetary boundaries, a small icy dwarf world and its unusually large companion demonstrate a strange, intimate extreme of orbital mechanics. Usually a smaller moon gracefully orbits a much larger stationary host planet, clearly defining the master and the servant in their localized gravitational relationship. However, this distant frozen pair are so surprisingly close in mass and size that they cannot establish a traditional dominant orbital hierarchy. Instead of the smaller body circling the larger, their mutual balanced gravity forces them both to lock into a tight spinning waltz around an entirely empty point in the cold vacuum. They circle a shared centre of mass that floats completely freely in the dark space between them, acting like two equal weights spun rapidly on opposite ends of an invisible string. Furthermore, their mutual gravitational grip is so incredibly tight that they have permanently locked their rotations, always forcing the exact same icy faces to look at each other across the void. If you were standing on the frozen surface of the primary body, the massive companion would hang permanently fixed in the exact same spot in the black sky, never rising or setting. It is an eerie, perfectly balanced, and completely frozen gravitational stalemate playing out silently in the deepest, dimmest suburbs of our star's reach. Extend your mind far past those frozen locked spheres, plunging deep into the most tenuous distant reaches of the sun's fading influence. Allow your breathing to match the slow, incredibly cold and silent majesty of the absolute edge of our local system. Billions of miles from the warmth of the central star, trillions of jagged, pristine chunks of dirty ice and rock float in a massive spherical shell known as the Oort cloud. Out here, the light from our sun is reduced to nothing more than a particularly bright cold star in an endless sea of blackness. Yet, even across this incomprehensible, staggering distance, the ghost of the star's immense mass still exerts a faint, gossamer-thin gravitational grip on these frozen relics. It is a hold so impossibly weak and delicate that a passing star from a neighbouring system could easily strip these icy bodies away with a slight brushing tug. This incredibly tenuous, fragile embrace is the absolute limit of our local geography. The gentle, freezing boundary where the sun's long reach finally surrenders to the deeper, empty void of the interstellar galaxy. The gravity here does not violently crush or rapidly orbit. It simply whispers, holding the ancient debris in the quietest, slowest holding pattern imaginable. Occasionally, the delicate, slow-motion piece of that distant, icy cloud is disturbed by a tiny gravitational nudge from a passing galactic neighbour. This microscopic disruption is enough to drastically alter the slow, lazy path of a frozen rock, sending it plunging steeply inward on a highly elliptical, desperate dive toward the heat. As the dark comet falls deeper into the system, the sun's gravity rapidly accelerates it, transforming the silent block of ice into a screaming, glowing projectile. it whips around the blazing surface of the star at terrifying breakneck speeds, utilizing the intense close-range gravity to execute a violent, energetic slingshot maneuver. The immense heat boils away its frozen surface, creating the brilliant, iconic, glowing tail of gas and dust that streaks majestically across our night sky. However, the sheer momentum gained from that close, gravitational whipping hurls the survivor rapidly back out into the freezing dark. It is a violent, dramatic and fleeting intersection with the intense inner system, driven entirely by the stretching elliptical mathematics of a deeply uneven gravitational fall. The brilliant flash of a comet is simply the visual evidence of a silent frozen rock surviving a terrifying high-speed lap around the heaviest object in our local universe. This high-speed lap through the local universe is a feat of survival that requires a precise, staggering investment of kinetic energy to even begin. Every journey into the heavens starts with a violent struggle to outrun the invisible, downward anchor of our home planet. To reach the stars, a vessel must achieve a velocity so immense that its forward momentum perfectly balances the planet's relentless desire to pull it back into the soil. Surprisingly, this state of being in orbit is not a departure from gravity, but a total surrender to it in the form of a stable, endless freefall. As the rocket thrusts horizontally against the curve of the world, it reaches a tipping point where it falls toward the horizon at the exact same rate the horizon curves away. The ship becomes a permanent captive of the gravitational well, locked in a perpetual plunge that never reaches the ground. Feel the weight of your own body right now, anchored safely by that same downward pull while you remain motionless on the solid crust. While you sit still, remember that every satellite and station above is only staying aloft because it is hurtling through the void at several miles per second. It is a symphony of motion where speed is the only thing preventing a catastrophic reunion with the Earth below. Contrasting this frantic high-speed dash is a specific higher realm where the chaotic motion of space appears to come to a complete miraculous standstill. Far above the tumbling low-altitude satellites, a specific band of space allows a craft to match the steady, rhythmic rotation of our planet with absolute precision. This structure of the gravitational field creates a unique vantage point where a metallic observer can hang permanently over a single unmoving spot on the map. If we were to look closer at this geostationary ballet, we would see a satellite falling through its orbit at the exact rate the ground rotates beneath it. Because the outward centrifugal force of its orbital path perfectly cancels the inward tug of the planet at this specific distance, it appears as a fixed star in the daytime sky. It is a masterclass in gravitational synchronization, allowing us to tether our global communications to a point that never wanders. This apparent stillness is merely a beautiful illusion created by the perfect alignment of two massive spinning systems. While the satellite seems to hover like a ghost, it is actually racing along a vast circular track tens of thousands of miles wide. It is a quiet, distant anchor that remains loyal to the specific patch of Earth it was launched to watch over. This cosmic structure of orbits allows for even more clever manipulations of mass and motion, enabling us to travel across the vastness of the system without carrying an impossible burden of fuel. A spacecraft can be navigated to brush past the gravitational influence of a massive planet, essentially stealing a tiny fraction of that world's orbital momentum. As the ship dives into the planet's deep gravitational well, it is whipped forward by the planet's own movement through the solar system. Surprisingly, the planet itself loses an infinitesimal amount of its own speed in this exchange, though the loss is so small it would not change the planet's day by even the width of an atom. The spacecraft, however, receives a massive energetic kick that hurls it toward its next distant destination with newfound ferocity. We call this maneuver a gravity assist, a celestial game of billiards where the planets themselves act as the cues. It is a profound realization that we can navigate the dark void by borrowing the ancient kinetic energy of the giants. By carefully timing these close encounters, we turn the very force that tries to trap us into a powerful engine for our escape. Gravity ceases to be a barrier and becomes a supportive hand, flinging our instruments deeper into the unknown. If we look further back into our history of exploration, the legendary Voyager probes stand as the ultimate testament to this borrowed planetary power. These twin metallic messengers utilized a rare alignment of the outer giants to perform a consecutive chain of gravitational slingshots across the entire solar system. They dove toward the swirling storms of Jupiter and the glittering rings of Saturn, emerging each time with a staggering increase in velocity. This structure of the journey allowed them to build enough speed to overcome the sun's immense, long-range grip and head toward the interstellar dark. They did not carry engines powerful enough to leave the sun's realm on their own. They relied entirely on the massive spinning energy of the gas giants to provide the necessary boost. Each planet they visited acted as a massive invisible accelerator, pushing them faster and faster into the deep. Nod your head slightly or adjust your resting posture, acknowledging the quiet, heavy reality of the mass that made this journey possible. Without the immense weight of Jupiter and Saturn to borrow from, these probes would still be drifting slowly in the inner system. Instead, they are the fastest man-made objects ever to grace the void, powered by the stolen momentum of the heaviest worlds we know. Deep within the local gravitational interaction between the Earth and the Sun, there exist 5 hidden silent pockets where the rules of attraction are temporarily suspended. These unique coordinates, known as Lagrange points, are places where the competing pulls of the two massive bodies perfectly cancel each other out. A smaller object placed in one of these parking spots will stay in a stable position relative to both the Earth and its star with almost no effort. Surprisingly, the universe provides these quiet islands of equilibrium as natural harbours in the otherwise turbulent ocean of space-time. They are mathematical sweet spots where the centripetal force of an orbit perfectly balances the combined gravitational tug of the two larger masses. Because of this stability, these points have become the most valuable real estate in the local neighbourhood for our most sensitive scientific instruments. It is a strange, peaceful paradox to find such total stillness in a system where everything is constantly pulling and falling. These points allow us to observe the cosmos from a fixed perspective, unbothered by the constant wobbling of a standard orbit. They are the quiet seats in the middle of a grand, spinning theatre, offering a perfect view of the cosmic performance. Resting comfortably in the most famous of these gravitational saddles is the James Webb Space Telescope, a golden eye peering back at the very beginning of time. It sits at the second Lagrange point, roughly 1 million miles away from the Earth, positioned so that our planet always stands between the telescope and the Sun. This structure allows the telescope to keep its delicate frozen instruments shielded from the immense distorting heat of both the star and the Earth. Notice how the stillness of this position mirrors the calm you're trying to cultivate in your own mind right now. Just as you are seeking a moment of quiet away from the noise of the world, this telescope finds its silence in a pocket of balanced gravity. It hangs there in the cold dark, perfectly synchronized with our planet's year-long journey around the Sun, without ever needing to fire its thrusters to stay in place. If it were positioned anywhere else, the uneven pull of the Earth would eventually drag it off course, or force it to burn through its limited fuel. At this specific point of balance, gravity itself acts as a protective cradle, holding the multi-billion-dollar instrument in a steady, unyielding embrace. It is the ultimate expression of using the laws of physics to find a moment of perfect, productive peace. Surprisingly, the behaviour of an object in orbit becomes highly counterintuitive when it begins to lose its original energy to the thin, ghostly atmosphere of the upper heights. If a satellite slows down due to friction or drag, the logic of the everyday world suggests it should simply move slower and eventually stop. However, in the realm of the orbital symphony, a loss of speed actually forces the object to drop into a lower, tighter circle around the planet. As it falls into this lower altitude, the Earth's gravity pulls on it with significantly more intensity, which paradoxically forces the satellite to move much faster to maintain its new position. This orbital decay transforms a slow, dragging descent into a frantic, high-speed spiral toward the dense air of the lower atmosphere. The more energy the satellite loses to the invisible drag of the air, the faster it must race through its ever-shrinking loop. This structure of the falling orbit is a reminder that in space, the relationship between height and speed is a delicate inverse balance. To go higher, one must add energy, and to go faster, one often finds themselves pulled lower. It is a graceful, spiraling descent where the planet's pull constantly adjusts the tempo of the object's final, burning dance. If we were to look closer at two orbiting bodies in a perfect, airless vacuum, we would witness a display of perpetual motion that defies our terrestrial experience with friction. Without the stray atoms of an atmosphere or the dragging effects of dust to slow them down, these masses would endlessly trace the exact same geometric paths for billions of years. This structure of movement is the purest form of the smooth, continuous motion of a spinning top mentioned in our master plan. The energy of their original motion is perfectly preserved, trapped in a closed loop where the inward pull and the outward momentum never lose their footing. Take a moment to feel the absolute solidity of the floor beneath you, a stark contrast to the frictionless, eternal gliding of the planets. On Earth, every movement eventually comes to a halt because of the resistance of the world around us. In the deep void, gravity creates a system of perfect efficiency, where a moon or a planet requires no further push to keep moving through the dark. It is a silent, lossless engine that maintains the order of the stars without ever needing a refill of power. This eternal persistence is what gives the universe its sense of timeless, unchanging stability across the vast eons. Surprisingly, we can use these same principles of motion and acceleration to create a convincing imitation of the very force that anchors us to the Earth. Artificial gravity could be generated on a future spacecraft simply by setting the entire vessel into a steady, rhythmic spin. This structure would utilize centripetal force to press anything inside the ship outward against the curved interior of the hull. If the ship spins at the correct rate, an astronaut sleeping against that outer wall would feel a pressure that is indistinguishable from the heavy, comforting pull of the ground. Their blood would flow to their feet, and their muscles would have a solid surface to push against, preventing the slow decay that comes with living in freefall. It is a beautiful irony that we can escape the Earth's gravity and then use the physics of a spinning top to bring a piece of it with us. This mimics the way a bucket of water can be spun over your head without spilling a single drop, held in place by its own outward momentum. We are not creating mass, but we are creating the sensation of weight through the geometry of motion. It is a testament to our understanding of the symphony of orbits that we can weave our own gravity out of nothing but a well-timed spin. The final requirement for any vessel wishing to leave this grand orchestral arrangement forever is the achievement of escape velocity. This structure of speed represents the precise energy threshold needed to break the invisible bonds of a planet's gravitational well once and for all. To leave the Earth behind without ever falling back, a ship must reach a staggering 7 miles per second, a speed that overcomes the planet's ability to curve its path into a loop. Once this threshold is crossed, the trajectory changes from a closed, repeating circle to an open, infinite line that leads into the deep dark of the interstellar void. The planet's pull continues to tug at the ship, slowing it down as it moves further away, but at escape velocity, that pull will never be strong enough to stop the ship's outward progress. It is a moment of ultimate liberation, where the tether that has held every ancestor and every stone finally snaps. This exit from the system is the conclusion of our orbital symphony, the point where the music of the spheres fades into the background as we head into the silent spaces between the stars. The gravity of home becomes a fading memory, a gentle tug that grows weaker with every passing second until it is nothing more than a whisper. We are left alone with the momentum we have earned, drifting toward the next great anchor in the cosmic sea. This drifting sensation across the cosmic sea eventually brings us to the monumental anchors of the deep sky, those steady points of light that have burned since the dawn of time. Deep within the shimmering heart of every distant spark in the night, a violent and ancient war is being waged with incomprehensible intensity. Every single star you can see is a delicate billions of years long balancing act between two diametrically opposed titanic forces that refuse to yield. On one side, the crushing, relentless inward force of gravity tries to squeeze every atom of the star into a single, infinitesimal point of darkness. Pushing back against this overwhelming collapse is the explosive outward radiation pressure generated by the furnace of nuclear fusion deep in the core. This thermal energy acts as a temporary, brilliant shield that prevents the massive sphere from folding in on itself under its own staggering weight. It is a state of hydrostatic equilibrium, a tense but beautiful stalemate that allows the star to shine steadily for eons. The ancient glow reaching your eyes right now is the visual testament to this precarious, ongoing struggle between total collapse and total explosion. Gravity is the patient hunter, waiting for the precise moment when the internal fires begin to flicker and fade. This structure of celestial harmony remains stable only as long as the star has the fuel necessary to keep its internal engines roaring. Eventually, every star reaches a point of exhaustion where the primary hydrogen fuel is spent, and the outward pressure of fusion begins to falter and dim. In that singular, terrifying moment of thermodynamic failure, the patient force of gravity instantly wins the ultimate battle it has been fighting for billions of years. Without the outward push to hold it back, the entire mass of the star begins to collapse inward with sudden and catastrophic ferocity. The outer layers of the star fall toward the centre at significant fractions of the speed of light, crushed by the weight of their own history. It is a moment of total submission, where the architecture of the star is rewritten in a heartbeat by the singular power of its own mass. Surprisingly, this collapse does not always lead to total destruction, but often signals the birth of something far more dense and exotic. The star's final shape is determined entirely by how much matter it possessed during its long life. Gravity, having won the war, now begins the process of recycling the star's remains into the building blocks of the next cosmic era. Surprisingly, smaller and more modest stars like the one that warms our own world follow a much more graceful and contemplative path to their final rest. As these stars run low on fuel, they gently exhale their outer layers into the void, creating glowing, colourful shells of gas that drift away like smoke from a dying fire. What remains is a small, incredibly dense and glowing ember known to astronomers as a white dwarf. This remnant is no longer a living star in the traditional sense, as it has no more fuel to burn and no more internal fire to push back against the dark. Instead, it is held up by a strange quantum mechanical force called electron degeneracy pressure, which acts as the final line of defense against gravity's crushing grip. The white dwarf sits in the cold dark, slowly cooling over trillions of years, a silent monument to the star it once was. If we were to look closer at its surface, we would find a world made of matter so tightly packed that it defies our everyday understanding of solid objects. It is a diamond-hard sphere the size of a planet, yet possessing the mass of a sun. This cooling ember represents the quiet, dignified retirement of a star that lived its life in perfect gravitational balance. If we were to look closer at the sheer physical reality of such a world, we would find that the concept of weight has been completely transformed. Imagine taking a single teaspoon of material from the heart of a white dwarf and attempting to lift it while standing on the surface of the Earth. This tiny amount of matter would weigh as much as a fully grown African elephant, a staggering concentration of mass that would instantly crush through any container we could build. Notice how your body currently rests against your seat, feeling the light and manageable pull of the ground beneath you. On the surface of a white dwarf, that same body would be flattened into a layer of atoms only a single cell, thick by the overwhelming downward force. The atoms themselves have been squeezed so tightly that the empty space between the nucleus and the electrons has been almost entirely eliminated. Surprisingly, The universe allows for these incredible densities because gravity is strong enough to overcome the electromagnetic forces that normally keep matter separate. A white dwarf is the ultimate expression of material efficiency, packing an entire star's worth of mass into a volume no larger than a rocky planet. It is a heavy, silent anchor that reminds us of the true power hidden within the heart of every shining point in the sky. Beneath the violent and spectacular end of a truly massive star lies a gravitational event so powerful it reshapes the very nature of matter itself. When a star many times larger than our Sun runs out of fuel, it does not go quietly into the night. It explodes in a supernova, a flash of light that can outshine entire galaxies. The outer layers are blasted into space, but the core is crushed by gravity into an even more extreme state than a white dwarf. This core is compressed so violently that protons and electrons are forced to merge, creating a solid sphere of pure neutrons. The resulting object, a neutron star, is only about 12 miles wide but contains more mass than our entire solar system. Gravity has successfully squeezed a mountain's worth of matter into the size of a single grain of sand. This structure is so dense that it acts like a giant atomic nucleus, a single, spinning ball of nuclear material held together by the most intense gravitational field in the observable universe. It is a place where the laws of physics as we know them are pushed to their absolute breaking point. The neutron star is the ultimate victor in the battle against space and time, a concentrated knot of mass that refuses to be ignored. Through the cold and empty reaches of the galaxy, some of these neutron stars announce their presence with a rhythmic, mechanical precision that once led astronomers to mistake them for alien signals. These are the pulsars, rapidly spinning remnants that possess magnetic fields so powerful they channel beams of intense radiation out of their magnetic poles. As the neutron star spins hundreds of times per second, these beams sweep across the cosmos like the light from a cosmic lighthouse. This structure of rotating light is only possible because of the intense, concentrated gravity of the neutron star, which allows it to spin at such incredible speeds without flying apart. Every few milliseconds, the beam of a pulsar might wash over the Earth, providing us with a clock more accurate than any we could ever build. It is a steady, reassuring pulse from the deep dark, a signal that gravity has created something that functions with the precision of a watch. Surprisingly, these pulsars can be used by navigators to find their way across the galaxy, as each one has a unique and unchanging signature. They are the fixed points in a moving universe, the gravitational beacons that mark the locations of the most extreme events in history. A pulsar is a reminder that even in the aftermath of a star's death, gravity can create something of profound order and utility. Notice how the steady foundation of the room around you provides a sense of unchanging, solid reality. If you were to stand upon the surface of a neutron star, that sense of solidity would be enforced by a gravitational field that is billions of times stronger than the one currently holding you in place. On such a world, the very concept of a mountain or a valley becomes a physical impossibility because the downward pull is too intense to allow for any height. Take a moment to feel the weight of your feet on the floor, and then imagine that same sensation magnified until your bones would turn to powder. This is the reality of the neutron star surface, a place where gravity has achieved a level of control that leaves no room for variation. It is the smoothest, heaviest, and most unforgiving environment in the known universe, shaped entirely by the victory of mass over space. This cosmic waltz of gravity often involves more than just a single star, as many of the lights in the sky are actually two or more stars caught in a permanent embrace. These binary star systems consist of two celestial bodies that are gravitationally bound to each other, orbiting around their common and invisible center of mass. They perform a graceful and endless dance, their paths determined entirely by the mutual tug of their respective weights. If we were to look closer, we would see that these stars do not simply orbit each other, but rather circle a shared point in space, like two ballroom dancers spinning around a fixed spot on the floor. This structure of mutual attraction provides a stable, long-term relationship that can last for billions of years without ever faltering. Gravity acts as the invisible thread that connects their fates, ensuring they are never truly alone in the vastness of the galaxy. Surprisingly, the majority of the stars we see in the night sky are actually members of these binary or multiple star systems. Our own sun, sitting alone in its corner of the void, is actually a bit of a cosmic rarity. The universe seems to prefer the companionship of gravity, linking stars together in a complex and beautiful choreography that spans the light years. If we were to look at a binary system where one star is much denser than the other, we might witness a much more predatory display of gravitational power. Occasionally, a dense remnant like a white dwarf or a neutron star will be paired with a larger, more bloated companion star that is still in its middle age. The intense, localized gravity of the dense remnant begins to reach out and pull at the outer gas of its neighbor, acting like a cosmic vampire. Surprisingly, the universe allows one star to literally siphon the glowing lifeblood from another, driven entirely by the overwhelming strength of its gravitational well. This stolen gas forms a swirling, glowing disk around the denser star, heating up to millions of degrees as it is accelerated and crushed. It is a violent and one-sided exchange where gravity acts as the thief, slowly dismantling one star to feed the hunger of another. This process can lead to spectacular outbursts of energy, as the stolen gas piles up on the surface of the dense remnant and eventually ignites in a thermonuclear flash. It is a reminder that gravity is not always a peaceful gardener. It can also be an opportunistic predator that takes whatever it can reach. In the binary waltz, the star with the deeper gravitational well always gets the final say in the partnership. Deep within the outer reaches of the galaxy, the most spectacular displays of shared gravity can be found in the form of globular clusters. These are ancient, shimmering spheres that pack hundreds of thousands of stars into a relatively small and incredibly tight gravitational embrace. They are the oldest structures in the universe, having orbited the outskirts of galaxies since the very beginning of cosmic time. The stars within a globular cluster are so close together that their mutual gravity holds them in a permanent, swarm-like configuration that never disperses. From a distance, they look like glowing balls of stardust, but up close, they are a chaotic and beautiful hive of thousands of stars in constant intersecting motion. They orbit the center of our galaxy in long, sweeping loops, held in place by the massive gravitational field of the entire galactic disk. Looking across the vast distance to these clusters, we see the ultimate testament to the longevity of gravitational order. While individual stars may die and planets may crumble, the globular cluster remains a stable and unchanging monument to the power of shared mass. It is a fitting conclusion to our journey through the weight of stars, a final, glowing example of how gravity weaves the individual threads of the universe into a single, cohesive tapestry. This cohesive tapestry is far more than a poetic metaphor for the interconnectedness of the stars. It is the literal physical foundation of everything we perceive in the cosmos. Albert Einstein radically reimagined our understanding of the universe by realizing that gravity is not a mysterious, invisible pulling force acting across an empty void. Instead, he proposed that gravity is the actual physical curving of the four-dimensional fabric of space and time itself. Imagine a vast, taut sheet of invisible silk stretched across the entirety of existence, providing a substrate for every atom and every light-year of distance. Matter does not merely sit on top of this sheet, it is inextricably woven into the material, dictating the very shape and contour of the void. This profound shift in thinking transformed gravity from a ghostly, Newtonian tug into a tangible, geometric property of the universe we inhabit. When you move through the world, you are navigating the subtle, invisible bends and folds of this universal fabric. Space is not a hollow, rigid container, but a flexible and reactive medium that responds instantly to the presence of mass. It is a silent, elegant solution that explains why everything in the universe, from a falling leaf to a rotating galaxy, follows the same fundamental laws of motion. Imagine the feeling of sinking into a soft, deep mattress, where your weight creates a gentle, supportive indentation that naturally alters the surface around you. This sensory experience is the most accurate way to visualize how massive objects like stars and planets organize the local cosmic landscape. They do not reach out with invisible arms to grab their neighbors. They simply rest upon the fabric of space-time, creating deep, silent wells. The deeper the indentation an object makes, the more influence it exerts over the paths of any nearby travelers. Smaller objects do not fall toward a planet because they are being yanked by a force, but because they are rolling down the silent geometric slope of the fabric. They are simply following the path of least resistance through a world that is no longer a flat Euclidean grid. Deep within this realization is a sense of profound peace, as the chaotic motion of the heavens becomes a simple matter of elegant geometry. Everything in the sky is resting in a pocket of space tailored exactly to its own mass and momentum. The universe is not a place of violent struggle and pulling, but a collection of quiet, supportive curves that guide the stars on their long journeys. Surprisingly, the universe demonstrates this hidden, geometric architecture through the behavior of light, the fastest and most direct traveler in existence. We are taught from a young age that light always travels in perfectly straight lines, yet these lines must inevitably follow the contours of the space they move through. When a beam of ancient starlight passes near a massive, heavy object, it bends beautifully, tracing the invisible geometry of the warped fabric. This bending occurs not because the light is being physically pulled by a force, but because the straight path itself has been curved by the object's immense mass. If you were to trace the journey of a single photon, it would feel as though it never veered from its course, even as it arcs around a sun. It is a visual confirmation that the background of our reality is not a rigid stage, but a flexible and reactive material. Take a moment to relax your eyes and imagine the trillions of light beams currently weaving through these invisible cosmic valleys. Each one is a silent messenger, carrying news of the deep, warped geometry of the distant dark. The stars we see in the night sky are often not exactly where they appear to be, as their light has been gently nudged by the weight of the universe. If we were to look closer at the most distant reaches of the observable sky, we would witness this bending of light acting as a colossal, cosmic magnifying glass. This phenomenon, known as gravitational lensing, allows modern astronomers to peer at incredibly ancient galaxies that would otherwise remain far too dim to detect. The immense gravity of a closer cluster of galaxies warps the space around it, focusing and amplifying the light from objects hidden directly behind it. This natural telescope is built into the very architecture of the universe, providing us with a bridge to the dawn of time. We see the distant background objects as distorted arcs or multiple images, shimmering like reflections in a pool of water. It is a stunning display of mass manipulating the path of information to reveal the secrets of the deep past. Notice how your body currently rests against its foundation, a steady anchor in a landscape where even light must bow to the power of mass. You are part of this grand optical experiment, a quiet observer of a universe that uses its own weight to bring the distant stars into focus. The sky is not a flat image, but a deep layered lens that magnifies the beauty of the distant dark. Deep within the complex mechanics of this flexible fabric, time itself is inextricably linked to the intensity of the local gravitational curve. Because mass warps time just as much as it warps space, the steady ticking of a clock actually changes pace depending on its proximity to a heavy body. Surprisingly, time flows slightly faster near the ceiling of a quiet room than it does down at the floor. The massive bulk of the Earth creates a slightly deeper temporal well at the surface, causing every second to stretch a fraction longer for your feet. While this difference is far too small for human senses to perceive, it is a fundamental and measurable truth of our reality. Your head is aging fractionally faster than your toes, moving through a slightly less compressed stream of time, If we could see these temporal gradients, the room around us would look like a shimmering layered fluid, each level moving at its own unique speed. It is a reminder that the now we experience is a localized sensation, tailored to the specific depth of the gravitational well we inhabit. Even in the silence of your resting body, you're drifting through a subtle vertical tide of time. This structure of shifting time is not merely a theoretical curiosity for physicists, but a practical reality that dictates the accuracy of our global technology. Global positioning satellites orbiting high above the planet experience gravity that is significantly weaker than what we feel on the rocky surface. Because they sit further out in the gravitational well, their onboard atomic clocks run about 45 microseconds faster every single day. To ensure your navigation data remains accurate, these satellites must be programmed to mathematically correct for this subtle time dilation before they send their signals. If these gravitational adjustments were ignored, the calculated position on your phone would drift by several miles in less than 24 hours. Our very ability to find our way home depends on our understanding of how gravity stretches the seconds. This invisible correction is happening every moment, a silent dialogue between the high orbit and the ground. It proves that the abstract theories of the past are the working mechanics of our present, keeping our world synchronized and orderly. We are navigating a planet that is constantly adjusting its clocks to match the curvature of the heavens. Mercury's ancient journey through the solar system provided the first definitive proof that this geometric understanding of gravity was correct. For centuries, astronomers were baffled by a tiny, persistent wobble in the orbit of the planet closest to the Sun that defied traditional laws. No matter how precisely they calculated the tugs of the other planets, the smallest world's path never quite matched their mathematical predictions. It was only when Einstein applied his understanding of curvature that the answer finally emerged from the mathematical dark. Because Mercury sits so deep within the Sun's massive indentation in space-time, it must navigate a path that is significantly more warped than any other world. The very floor of the solar system is tilted and curved so sharply near the star that Mercury's orbit naturally precesses and wobbles. Take a moment to acknowledge the stillness of your own environment, knowing that even the erratic movements of the planets are just follows of the silent curves. The wobble of a distant world was the signal that space itself is alive with geometry. This triumph of theory proved that we are living in a universe that is far more dynamic than we ever dared to imagine. Surprisingly, the influence of this curvature does not instantly communicate its presence across the vast, empty distances of the interstellar void. Gravity travels at exactly the speed of light, meaning that the fabric of space-time requires a specific amount of time to ripple and react to any sudden change in mass. This cosmic speed limit ensures that the universe remains a place of cause and effect, where information cannot move faster than the light itself. If the Sun were to magically vanish this very instant, the Earth would not immediately lose its anchor and fly off into the dark. Instead, we would continue to orbit an empty, ghostly centre for 8 full minutes, still following the curve that was already in motion. We would be held by the memory of a mass that is no longer there, caught in a gravitational echo. This delay creates a universe where the past and the present are beautifully, gravitationally intertwined. We're always reacting to where objects were, not where they are, held in a steady embrace by signals sent minutes, years, or eons ago. It is a patient, rhythmic system that ensures no change happens without a graceful, rolling wave of adjustment. The swirling motion of massive spinning objects adds yet another layer of complexity to the invisible architecture of the heavens. When a planet or star spins rapidly, it slowly entrains the local fabric of space, pulling the coordinates around in a subtle spiraling motion. Scientists describe this strange effect as frame dragging, a phenomenon where the rotation of mass leaves a physical wake in the void. If you were to swirl a spoon in a jar of thick, viscous honey, you would notice the surrounding liquid being dragged along in a slow, swirling circle. This is precisely how a spinning Earth or a distant, heavy star interacts with the very dimensions of the universe around it. Space is not a static background, but a material that can be knotted, twisted, and pulled by the sheer momentum of matter. This proves that the motion of a star is never an isolated event. It is a shared experience with the fabric of reality itself. Every rotation and every spin adds a new layer of complexity to the invisible geometry of the night. We are resting on a world that is quietly, continuously knitting the space around it into a unique and intricate pattern. Looking toward the grand totality of the cosmos, we eventually realize that space is not a hollow, empty stage where events occur. It is an active, flexible, and responsive participant in the grand cosmic play, constantly changing its shape and tempo in response to the matter it holds. The universe is a dynamic ocean of geometry, where every movement and every mass leaves a lasting impression on the fabric of reality. This realization transforms our understanding of the void from a place of nothingness into a substance of infinite potential and responsiveness. We're not just living in space, we're part of a continuous breathing structure that defines the very possibility of our existence. Gravity is the language this fabric speaks, the way it communicates its shape to the objects resting within its folds. Close your eyes and feel the final absolute stillness of this moment, supported by a universe that is never truly empty. Every breath you take and every thought you have occurs within this beautiful, warped and wonderful tapestry of space-time. It is a grand synthesis of mass and geometry, a silent symphony that holds the stars in place and brings us safely to our rest. Rest is a luxury not shared by the colossal spiral structures spinning throughout the deep dark of the cosmos. When we observe the majestic rotation of a distant galaxy, we see hundreds of billions of stars whirling around a central point like a luminous, silent carousel. However, a startling realization emerges when we calculate the total mass of those visible suns and compare it to their incredible orbital speeds. The stars at the outermost edges are hurtling through the void with such ferocity that they should, by all rights, be flung away into the intergalactic abyss. The gravity provided by the light we see, the glowing nebulae, the burning cores, and the cosmic dust, is simply too weak to anchor these frantic high-speed orbits. According to the known laws of mass and motion, these galaxies should have shredded themselves apart eons ago, scattering their stellar residents across the vacuum. Deep within this cosmic mystery lies an invisible, unyielding substance that acts as the ultimate gravitational glue for the entire universe. While the brilliant light of the stars draws our eyes, it is a silent, dark presence that truly commands the structure of the galactic spiral arms. This hidden architect wraps its phantom fingers around the spinning galaxies, providing the extra weight needed to prevent a total structural collapse. It is the unseen majority of the universe, a vast scaffolding that supports the delicate shining theatre of the visible world from the shadows. Surprisingly, the universe is built upon a foundation we cannot see, touch, or even measure with traditional light or radiation. Without this dark anchor, the beautiful symmetries of the cosmos would dissolve into a chaotic, formless spray of isolated, wandering suns. We inhabit a world where the most powerful influences are those that remain entirely hidden from our biological senses. This substance does not compete with the stars for attention, yet it dictates every curve and sweep of their celestial paths. It is the quiet, heavy hand that keeps the lights on, ensuring that the grand architecture of the heavens remains intact through the passage of eons. We are the rarities, the tiny, luminous exceptions floating in a vast sea of dark, heavy influence that defines the cosmos. If we were to weigh the entire universe on a cosmic scale, the shining galaxies and glowing gas clouds would barely tip the balance against this ghostly majority. Our familiar reality of solids, liquids, and gases is merely a thin, sparkling skin riding on a deep, dark ocean of gravitational power. It is a humbling realization that the stuff of our lives and our planet is just a secondary player in the grand universal account. We are guests in a dark house, living in the small, bright corners while the silent majority occupies the vast hidden halls. This structure of reality forces us to redefine what it means for something to be real, when the most dominant substance in existence is one we can never truly see. Notice the stillness of your body in this moment, a quiet intersection of matter that interacts with the world through touch, light, and heat. The dark phantom that rules the heavens possesses none of these familiar traits, passing through our world like a cool, unseen breeze passing through an open window. It does not reflect, absorb, or emit even the tiniest flicker of light, remaining eternally invisible to even our most sensitive optical instruments. It is a ghost that possesses immense mass, but lacks a physical face, revealing its presence only through the steady, patient tug of its gravity. Electromagnetism, the force that allows us to see colours and feel the texture of solid objects, simply does not apply to this mysterious substance. It drifts through planets, stars, and even your own resting form right now without leaving a single trace of its passage or a hint of friction. Only the warping of space-time itself betrays the existence of this silent giant, as it pulls at the fabric of reality with an iron grip. It is a presence defined entirely by what it does not do, a master of the universe that refuses to be measured by anything other than its weight. This ghostly nature allows it to occupy the same space as the stars without ever interfering with their light, a silent partner in the cosmic dance. If we were to look closer at the true boundaries of a galaxy, we would find that the shining stars are merely a small cluster at the heart of something much larger. Every galactic structure is encased within an enormous spherical halo of dark matter that extends hundreds of thousands of light years into the empty dark. These invisible spheres are the true containers of the stars, providing a massive gravitational cocoon that shapes the environment for billions of suns. The visible galaxy is just the glowing heart of a much vaster, darker body that provides the necessary gravity to keep the system stable. This structure suggests that we are living in a universe of nested spheres, where light is localized but gravity is expansive and all-encompassing. These halos are so massive that they dominate the local environment, dictating the orbits of satellite galaxies and the motion of intergalactic gas. We see the warm campfire of the stars in the night sky, but we often forget the vast dark forest of mass that surrounds and protects it. These halos act as the foundational anchors for every galaxy, ensuring that the stars have a stable home in which to burn and evolve. They are the invisible boundaries of our galactic neighbourhoods, marking the limits of our influence in the deep universal void. Surprisingly, the universe is not a collection of isolated islands, but a vast interconnected network known to astronomers as the cosmic web. This universe-spanning structure consists of long, thin filaments of dark matter that stretch across the incomprehensible, empty voids of space. These invisible threads act as the fundamental nervous system of the cosmos, guiding the formation and movement of all visible matter along their length. They are the highways of the heavens, directing the flow of primordial gas and the gathering of the stars toward the centers of gravity. This structure is so immense that it dwarfs the largest galactic clusters, forming a shimmering geometric skeleton that holds the entire universe together. It is a testament to the ordering power of gravity that such a massive, organized network can exist across billions of light-years of distance. Every shining galaxy we observe is just a small bead of light strung upon an invisible dark thread of this grand universal tapestry. The cosmic web is the ultimate expression of the invisible scaffolding, providing the map upon which the history of the universe is written. It is a structure that links every part of the cosmos to every other part, a silent connection that spans the entirety of space and time. Deep within this cosmic network, the points where these invisible dark threads cross and intertwine become the focal points of all creation. Galaxies and vast clusters of stars naturally pull together at these busy intersections, drawn by the overwhelming quiet gravity of the concentrated dark mass. They are like coastal cities gathering at the mouths of great rivers, situated where the flow of matter and energy is most intense. It is a landscape defined entirely by the geography of the invisible, where the intersections of the dark determine the locations of the light. We live on a planet that is part of a galaxy, that is itself a part of one of these great gathering points in the web. Our location in the universe is not a matter of chance, but a direct result of where the dark filaments have chosen to meet. This invisible scaffolding was the essential ingredient required to spark the very first lights in the ancient cooling universe following the Big Bang. In the early eons of space-time, the normal matter of gas and dust was too hot and too dispersed to collapse under its own meagre gravity. It was the heavy, patient pull of the dark matter filaments that provided the necessary pressure to gather that gas into the first dense clouds. Without this dark nursery to pull the elements together, the universe might have remained a formless, lightless fog of hydrogen and helium forever. Dark matter acted as the invisible hand that squeezed the primordial gas into the tight, hot knots required for the first nuclear fusion to ignite. We owe our very existence, and the existence of every star that has ever burned, to this silent, dark partner that built the foundations. It is the architect that built the furnace before the fire was even a physical possibility in the expanding dark. The stars are the children of the dark matter, born from the gravitational wells that the invisible scaffolding dug in the fabric of the young universe. This realization turns our understanding of the dark on its head, revealing it not as an enemy of light, but as its primary creator and protector. Astronomers map the contours of this hidden world by carefully observing how its gravity distorts the background light from even more distant galaxies. Just as a ripple in a pool of water betrays the presence of a submerged stone, the warped shapes of faraway stars reveal the location of the dark matter. This structure of gravitational lensing allows us to see the invisible by watching how it manipulates the visible world around it. We can trace the vast filaments and heavy halos by measuring the subtle, geometric stretching of the light from the deep sky. It is a delicate and painstaking process, requiring the most sensitive telescopes and the most precise mathematical models ever created by human minds. We are essentially reading the shadows of the universe, using the light as a tracer to find the heavy, dark mass that defines the landscape. This allows us to construct a three-dimensional map of the cosmic web, revealing the hidden skeleton of reality that was previously closed to us. We're finally beginning to see the shape of the house we live in, even if we cannot see the bricks themselves. It is a triumph of human ingenuity, using the gravity of the dark to illuminate the structure of the entire cosmos. Despite decades of intense search and the construction of massive detectors deep underground, the true microscopic nature of this dominant phantom remains a mystery. We know exactly how much of it exists and where it gathers in the heavens, yet we cannot identify the fundamental particle that gives it its weight. It is a gravitationally dominant phantom that sits at the center of our maps, but remains entirely outside our physical grasp and understanding. This silence from the subatomic world is one of the deepest and most profound unsolved mysteries in modern science, challenging our basic definitions of matter. Focus once more on the cool sensation of the air around you, a simple physical reality that dark matter refuses to share or acknowledge. We are surrounded by a substance that dictates the fate of the galaxies, yet we cannot even confirm its name or its origin. It is the ultimate cosmic secret, a silent majority that holds the universe together while remaining entirely apart from the world of light. This mystery does not diminish the beauty of the scaffolding, but rather adds a layer of wonder to the invisible structure of our home. We rest within a universe that is mostly hidden, supported by a dark and heavy grace that we're only just beginning to name. The name we give to this dark and heavy grace is often found in the way matter moves, specifically when the most gargantuan titans of the cosmos are caught in a violent, high-speed acceleration. When stars the size of our sun are whipped around each other at nearly the speed of light, they do not merely travel through the void, they actively bleed their energy outward into the surrounding vacuum. This lost energy takes the form of pure, invisible gravitational waves that propagate through the universe like the expanding rings of water after a pebble is dropped into a still pond. This structure of radiating energy is a fundamental tax on all movement, a silent requirement of general relativity that ensures no massive change occurs without a cosmic witness. As these two heavy bodies spiral closer and closer together, their motion becomes more frantic, and the ripples they cast into the dark become more frequent and powerful. It is a slow, rhythmic depletion that eventually leads to a final catastrophic union, but the waves themselves continue to travel across the light years long after the stars have merged. We are living in a universe that is constantly being vibrated by the ghosts of past movements, a fabric that remembers the path of every accelerating mass. Every breath you take and every movement of your hand creates a ripple so tiny it will never be felt, but the principle remains the same for you as it does for the stars. The universe is an endless pond, and every bit of matter is a stone that has already been cast into the deep. Surprisingly, these cosmic ripples are not travelling through space, but rather represent a rhythmic, physical distortion of space itself. As they wash across the galaxy at the absolute speed of light, they momentarily stretch every atom and every mile of the void in one direction, while simultaneously squeezing it in another. This structure of reality is so flexible that a gravitational wave can physically lengthen the distance between your resting shoulders and then instantly shorten it as it passes through your body. If we were to look closer at a single point in space as a wave passes by, we would see the dimensions themselves breathing, expanding and contracting in a silent geometric pulse. This is the squeeze and stretch of the universal fabric, a phenomenon that occurs without the need for any physical substance to carry the wave. It is the void itself that is vibrating, a realization that challenges our basic intuition about the emptiness of the dark. Notice the weight of your head on the pillow, or the steady rhythm of your chest as you breathe. These are the familiar anchors of your local reality. Yet, in the presence of a passing gravitational ripple, the very ground beneath you and the air around you are participating in a microscopic, rhythmic dance that defies your senses. The universe is not a static container, but a living, moving material that is constantly being reshaped by the passage of distant, massive events. Deep within the violent heart of a distant galaxy, the eventual collision of two supermassive black holes produces a gravitational tsunami so unimaginably powerful it defies any terrestrial comparison. For a fleeting microscopic fraction of a second, the energy released in these space-time ripples is greater than the combined light of every single star in the entire observable universe. It is a silent, lightless explosion of pure geometry that carries the force of millions of suns, yet it leaves the dark sky appearing completely undisturbed to the naked eye. This structure of energy release is the most efficient and powerful process in the known cosmos, converting solid mass directly into the vibration of the vacuum. As the two abysses finally touch and become one, they release a final, gargantuan chirp of gravitational energy that rings out across the billions of light years of empty space. This tsunami does not crash into shores or destroy planets with fire. It simply passes through everything, a ghost of a collision that happened in the deepest, oldest dark. The sheer scale of this event is a reminder of the staggering power hidden within the warping of space-time. We are observing the ultimate triumph of gravity, where the fabric of reality is torn and stitched back together in a moment of absolute violence. It is a quiet, heavy grace that moves the stars themselves, a ripple that is born from the absolute end of two massive cosmic journeys. By the time these gargantuan, universe-shaking ripples have travelled across millions of light years to reach our quiet blue planet, they have faded into an almost impossible whisper. The physical distortion they cause to the Earth and everything upon it is so infinitesimally small that it would escape the notice of any natural biological sense. If we were to look closer, we would find that the passage of such a wave only moves our entire planet by a distance smaller than the width of a single atomic nucleus. This extreme dilution of energy occurs because the waves must spread their power across the expanding sphere of the entire universe as they travel outward from their source. What began as a tsunami capable of outshining the stars arrives here as a ghostly tremor, a ripple so faint that even the most sensitive scientific instruments struggle to find its trace. It is a testament to the immense stability of our local environment that such violent events can happen in the distance without ever disturbing our peace. Allow your muscles to relax further into the surface beneath you, feeling the absolute stillness of a world that is only being moved by the fraction of a proton. You are resting on a planet that is being continuously bathed in these distant ancient whispers, yet they are so gentle they do not even disturb the dust in the air. We are living in a quiet pocket of a very loud universe, protected by the sheer, staggering vastness of the space between us and the stars. Capturing these microscopic distortions requires the most sensitive and ambitious machines ever constructed by human hands, utilizing miles-long vacuum chambers and perfectly suspended mirrors. Laser interferometers bounce pure beams of light back and forth between these mirrors, measuring the travel time with a precision that borders on the miraculous. If a gravitational wave passes through the facility, it fractionally alters the length of these long arms, causing the light beams to shift out of phase and revealing the ripple's presence. This structure of measurement is so incredibly sensitive that the detectors must be isolated from every possible source of local vibration, from the crashing of ocean waves miles away to the footsteps of a researcher in a nearby hall. The mirrors are hung from complex systems of pendulums that filter out the noise of the Earth, leaving them floating in a state of nearly perfect, artificial stillness. Only the ripples of space-time itself are powerful enough to reach through these defences and move the glass. It is a monumental achievement of engineering, a bridge between the subatomic and the galactic that allows us to see the invisible. We have built a series of giant antennas that can sense the heartbeat of the cosmos, turning the silence of the void into a readable signal. This technology is our new set of ears, tuned to the specific rhythmic frequencies of the most massive objects in existence. The first successful detection of these waves in the autumn of 2015 confirmed a century-old prediction and gifted humanity with an entirely new way to perceive the heavens. For the first time in history, we were no longer limited to looking at the light of the stars. We had finally learned how to listen to the vibrations of the universe itself. This landmark event transformed our understanding of the cosmos from a silent visual film into a rich, immersive symphony where every massive event has its own unique, gravitational voice. This discovery was the direct validation of the geometric theories that have guided our understanding of gravity since the days of Einstein. It proved that the fabric of space and time is a real tangible thing that can be moved and measured, just like the strings of a violin or the surface of a drum. We had finally touched the medium of reality, confirming that the dark and heavy grace we had named was a physical truth. Surprisingly, this opened a new era of astronomy, where we can observe events that produce no light at all, such as the silent merging of black holes in the deep dark. We're no longer blind to the most powerful events in the universe, as we have found the language they use to speak across the void. It is a moment of profound connection, where the whispers of the stars are finally translated into something we can understand and map. Merging neutron stars provide a particularly breathtaking display of this multi-sensory cosmic theatre, producing rhythmic space-time ripples alongside a spectacular blinding burst of visible radiation. These violent collisions are the primary cosmic forge where the heaviest elements in existence, such as the pure gold in a wedding ring or the platinum in a laboratory, are created in an instant. The gravitational waves tell the story of the star's final desperate waltz, while the flash of light reveals the birth of the very atoms that make up the treasures of our world. This structure of creation is a beautiful synthesis of gravity and nuclear physics, where the crushing of mass leads to the emergence of new, valuable material. As the two dense cores spiral into each other, they shed a spray of neutron-rich matter, that quickly undergoes rapid radioactive decay, forming the heavy metals we value on Earth. We are quite literally wearing the remains of these ancient gravitational collisions on our fingers and in our technology. Take a moment to look at your hands or the objects around you and realize that their heaviest parts were born in a moment of universe-shaking violence. The gold in the world is not just a mineral, it is a solidified echo of a neutron star collision, a tangible piece of a gravitational wave. We are physically made of the debris of these celestial events, a realization that links our local lives to the most extreme physics of the deep sky. Deep beneath the individual, explosive events that we have successfully detected, the entire universe is likely humming with a constant low-frequency background murmur. This structure of sound is caused by the combined overlapping echoes of countless distant supermassive black hole collisions occurring across billions of years of history. It is a persistent gravitational static that fills the void, a silent hum that suggests the fabric of space-time is never truly at rest. If we were to look closer at the deep sky with detectors sensitive enough to find this background, we would see a universe that is vibrating like a bell that has been struck 1 trillion times. This stochastic background is the ultimate record of the history of mass, a chorus of voices from every massive event that has ever occurred in the dark. It is a low, patient vibration that provides the background music for the entire cosmic play, a hum that spans the light years. Notice the quiet of the room around you, a silence that seems absolute and unchanging in this moment of rest. Yet, if your senses were tuned to the gravitational spectrum, you would hear the unending rhythmic pulse of 1 billion black hole mergers washing over you. We are never truly in silence. We're always floating in a sea of ancient vibrations, held in the steady humming embrace of a universe that never stops moving. Continuous and incredibly subtle gravitational waves might be softly singing to us right now from rapidly spinning neutron stars scattered throughout our own galactic neighborhood. If one of these dense, city-sized remnants has even a tiny microscopic bump on its surface, its furious rotation will generate a steady, unchanging ripple. This gravitational song is a whisper of perfect mechanical consistency, representing a star that is essentially humming as it spins thousands of times per second. This structure of continuous emission is fundamentally different from the sudden, explosive bursts of energy we see from black hole collisions. It is a steady, unwavering tone that reflects the absolute precision of the star's rotation and the minute imperfection of its shape. We are searching for these tiny, persistent signals, looking for the stars that have not yet gone quiet in their long retirement. Surprisingly, these singing stars could provide us with a map of the hidden, dense population of our galaxy, revealing the locations of objects that are too cold or too dark to see with light. They are the quiet performers in the back of the cosmic orchestra, maintaining a steady beat while the more dramatic stars grab the attention. Finding their song would be like discovering a hidden rhythmic heartbeat in the middle of the local dark, a sign of the enduring order of mass. Studying these ripples eventually allows us to peer back through the thick, impenetrable clouds of cosmic dust and gas that obscure our view of the early universe. Unlike light, which can be scattered, absorbed, or blocked by the matter it encounters, gravitational waves pass through everything with absolute unbothered transparency. They carry pristine information from the darkest and most opaque eras of the universe's infancy, offering us a direct window into the moments immediately following the dawn of time. This structure of observation is the ultimate goal of gravitational wave astronomy, as it allows us to see the universe as it was before light even existed. In the very first fractions of a second after the Big Bang, the universe was a hot, dense soup that was completely opaque to light, leaving us with a wall we cannot see past with telescopes. Gravitational waves, however, were born in that chaos and have been travelling freely ever since, carrying the map of our origins in their rhythmic pulses. Close your eyes once more and feel the final, absolute stillness of this journey, resting in the knowledge that the universe's oldest secrets are written in its motion. We're on the verge of reading the very first page of the cosmic story, using the ripples of space-time to see the moment the play began. Gravity is the ultimate historian, the one force that has seen everything and remembers it all in the silent, expanding rings of its own endless grace. This endless grace eventually converges upon a point where the music of the spheres reaches a final, crushing crescendo. When a dying star of sufficient magnitude finally exhausts its internal fires, the force of its own mass overcomes every other biological or physical barrier in the universe. It collapses inward with a ferocity that defies description, compressing all that ancient matter into an infinitely small, infinitely dense point. Deep within this ultimate wreckage of a star lies the singularity, a place where gravity has achieved its most absolute and terrifying triumph. Here, the very concepts of volume and surface area cease to have any meaningful definition in our common reality. It is a knot of pure mass that has successfully folded the fabric of space-time into a hole that can never be mended. Surprisingly, the entire weight of a celestial giant can be refined into a coordinate that occupies zero physical space. This is the dark engine at the heart of the abyss, the silent pivot around which the rest of the universe must carefully navigate. It represents the final victory of gravity over the structure of atoms and the reach of light. If we were to look closer at the space surrounding this infinite point, we would discover a specific invisible threshold where the rules of the universe change forever. This boundary, known as the event horizon, marks the precise distance where the downward pull of the singularity becomes so intense that even light cannot escape its grasp. It is a one-way mirror in the dark, a point of no return that separates the observable world from the absolute unknown. This sphere of total darkness is not a solid object, but a mathematical edge where the escape velocity finally exceeds the speed of light itself. It is the definitive shoreline of the ultimate abyss, a place where the universe's most basic laws are enforced with lethal, unyielding precision. Within this dark perimeter, the future has only one possible direction, and it is always down. Looking at this dark threshold from a safe distance reveals a visual experience that is as haunting as it is scientifically bizarre. If you were to watch a distant explorer drifting toward the event horizon, you would never actually witness them crossing into the dark. Instead, you would see their descent slow down dramatically as they approach the invisible edge, their light stretched thin by the intense gravitational well. This structure of warped time causes the falling traveller to appear as though they are becoming a permanent frozen ghost pinned against the fabric of the horizon. Their image would gradually shift into a deep blood-red colour, fading into the infrared spectrum as the light loses the energy needed to fight its way back to your eyes. To you, the observer, they remain forever caught in a moment of eternal transition, a silent portrait of a fall that never concludes. Surprisingly, the universe protects your eyes from seeing the actual crossing, hiding the final disappearance behind a curtain of slowing time. It is a masterclass in temporal distortion, where the gravity is so strong that it literally anchors the light to the spot. This frozen, fading image is all the outside world will ever know of the one who ventured too far into the deep. You would drift across the invisible boundary in a brief, unnoticeable instant, unaware that you had just left the observable universe behind forever. The stars behind you would appear to shrink and distort into a brilliant concentrated ring of light, while the dark void ahead would expand to consume your entire field of vision. You're drawn inexorably toward the silent centre, a captive of a geometry that has now removed the possibility of standing still. This structure of the internal journey eventually leads to a visceral and violent physical transformation that redefines the limits of material integrity. Because the gravitational pull increases so rapidly as you move toward the centre, the force acting on your feet would be significantly stronger than the force acting on your head. This extreme difference in attraction, known as a tidal force, begins to physically stretch your form along the vertical axis of the fall. If we were to look closer at this process, we would witness the human body being refined into a long, thin strand of atoms, a phenomenon physicists call spaghettification. Your physical structure is literally pulled apart by the unevenness of space-time, transformed from a complex organism into a stream of subatomic debris. It is not a sudden snap, but a smooth, relentless elongation that occurs as the gravity seeks to align you perfectly with the singularity. Surprisingly, the atoms themselves are eventually shredded as the force overcomes the electromagnetic bonds that hold molecules together. You become a one-dimensional ribbon of matter, a thin wire of mass plunging into the dark heart of the abyss. It is the ultimate expression of gravity's power to dismantle the world, turning the familiar shapes of life into the raw linear components of the dark. Notice the steady foundation beneath you, and the way your weight feels distributed across the chair or the bed. This sense of being anchored is mirrored on a grand galactic scale by the supermassive black holes that reside at the centre of almost every large galaxy. These are not the remnants of single stars, but titanic abysses containing the mass of millions or even billions of suns. This structure of concentrated weight acts as the ultimate gravitational anchor, providing the necessary tension to hold the vast, spiralling city of stars in place. Millions of surrounding suns, each with their own planetary systems and local histories, are locked in a slow, majestic orbit around this central point of darkness. The entire galaxy is a single, coherent machine that functions because of the silent, heavy heart beating at its core. Deep within the luminous dust and gas of the galactic centre, this invisible giant maintains the order of the heavens with a patient and unyielding grip. It is a symbiotic relationship where the black hole grows by consuming stray matter, while its immense presence keeps the rest of the galaxy from drifting apart. We're all living in the outer suburbs of a vast gravitational metropolis, governed by a ruler we can never see. Our own Milky Way galaxy quietly orbits a gentle sleeping giant tucked away behind thick opaque clouds of interstellar dust in the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. This central abyss, known to astronomers as Sagittarius A star, is a supermassive black hole weighing as much as 4 million suns. Despite its staggering mass, it currently exists in a state of relative dormancy, barely whispering as it anchors the rotation of our home galaxy. If we were to look closer at the stars in the very centre of the Milky Way, we would see them whipping around an empty point in space at several % of the speed of light. These high-speed orbits are the smoking gun that reveals the presence of the hidden mass, as nothing else in the universe could move a star so violently. We are tethered to this silent pivot, moving in a grand 200 million year circle that defines our place in the cosmic neighbourhood. This structure of the local centre is a reminder that even our vast, brilliant home is built around a core of absolute darkness. We are part of a system that is held together by the heavy, silent grace of an object that has consumed more than we can imagine. It is the dark master of the Milky Way, a sleeping engine that ensures our long-term stability in the deep void. Surprisingly, the most violent and energetic signals in the entire universe are produced not by the black hole itself, but by the material that is desperately trying to fall into it. When one of these giants begins to actively feed on a nearby gas cloud or a wandering star, the incoming matter forms a swirling, glowing accretion disk. This structure is a chaotic, hyper-accelerated whirlpool of superheated plasma that orbits the abyss at nearly the speed of light. The intense, localized gravity compresses this falling gas so tremendously that it heats up to millions of degrees, causing it to emit piercing, brilliant beams of X-rays. These accretion disks can be so bright that they outshine all the stars in their host galaxy combined, acting as cosmic beacons that reveal the presence of the abyss. It is a brilliant, incandescent warning sign, a ring of fire that marks the boundary of the ultimate trap. Take another deep breath and feel the cool, steady air in your lungs, a stark contrast to the searing, radioactive fury of the galactic centre. We are shielded from this terminal violence by tens of thousands of light-years of empty space and protective dust. Yet, the energy being radiated from these feeding giants is the most powerful and efficient light show in the known cosmos, driven entirely by the crushing power of the descent. The brilliant physicist Stephen Hawking theorized that these absolute abysses are not completely black, but actually slowly leak particles back into the universe over vast stretches of time. This structure of Hawking radiation suggests that the vacuum of space at the event horizon is not empty, but teeming with virtual particles that are constantly popping in and out of existence. Occasionally, one particle of a pair is swallowed by the black hole while the other escapes, carrying away a tiny fraction of the hole's mass. This microscopic leakage means that black holes are slowly, steadily evaporating, losing their heavy grip on reality over trillions and trillions of years. It is a process so agonizingly slow that a stellar mass black hole would take longer to vanish than the current age of the entire universe. Yet, it implies that even the most absolute triumph of gravity is not truly permanent in the eyes of quantum mechanics. Deep within the coldest, darkest future of the cosmos, the last remaining black holes will eventually wither away and disappear in a final, quiet pop of radiation. This realization adds a layer of mortality to the most powerful objects in existence, suggesting that the dark is just as subject to the laws of entropy as the light. Gravity may win every battle, but the vacuum of space slowly, patiently wins the long-term war. If we were to look closer at the very heart of the singularity, we would find a place where the known laws of physics break down entirely and lose all meaning. The smooth, geometric equations of general relativity and the precise probabilistic world of quantum mechanics clash in a terminal contradiction that no human mind has yet resolved. Inside the dark core, time and space may switch roles, or the entire concept of three dimensions might be refined into something we cannot even conceive. This structure of total physical failure leaves the true nature of the abyss an enduring and quiet mystery that sits at the centre of our understanding of reality. It is the absolute limit of our knowledge, a place where the universe has effectively hidden its internal workings behind a curtain of infinite gravity. We are left staring at the edge of a map that simply says, "Here be dragons," wondering what happens when matter is pushed past the point of existence. Notice the absolute silence inside an anechoic chamber, where the lack of sound reflects the total absence of information emerging from the core of the abyss. We are part of a universe that includes these pockets of total mystery, these dark knots in the fabric of space-time that refuse to be understood. This enduring silence is the final heavy grace of the ultimate abyss, a reminder that the most powerful force in the universe is also its most secretive guardian. The secretive guardian that rules the colossal architecture of the heavens eventually encounters a frustrating, invisible wall when we turn our gaze toward the smallest building blocks of reality. General relativity describes the grand cosmic scale with breathtaking beauty, mapping the orbits of massive planets and the curving light of distant galaxies with absolute precision. This theory treats the universe as a smooth, continuous fabric of space-time that bends elegantly under the influence of mass. It provides the heavy structural logic that governs the motion of the stars across billions of light-years of empty space. Yet, this elegant geometric description utterly fails to explain the frantic, jittery behaviour of bouncing atoms and subatomic particles that make up that very same mass. When we attempt to use the equations of the stars to predict the path of a single electron or a proton, the math dissolves into chaotic, unusable nonsense. It is as if the universe speaks two entirely different languages that refuse to translate into one another, leaving a profound and silent gap in our fundamental understanding. This failure at the microscopic level suggests that our most successful theory of the heavens is still missing a vital piece of the cosmic puzzle. Surprisingly, the very force that anchors your body to the earth in this quiet moment becomes an invisible ghost when we zoom into the microscopic depths. At the scale of the atom, gravity is so incredibly weak that it is completely ignored by the laws of chemistry and nuclear physics. We are living in a divided reality, where the rules for the whole do not seem to apply to the tiny parts that compose us. Quantum mechanics governs the subatomic realm with its own set of perfect, probabilistic laws, yet no brilliant mind has ever successfully incorporated the pulling force of mass into its precise equations. This field of study reveals a world where particles can exist in multiple places at once and teleport across empty space, a reality that seems fundamentally incompatible with the rigid geometry of space-time. When we try to apply the math of the very large to the world of the very small, the numbers spiral into nonsense and impossible infinite values. The fabric of space-time, so smooth and dependable on the scale of a galaxy, seems to dissolve into a violent foaming mess when viewed through a microscopic lens. This quantum foam suggests that on the smaller scales, the universe is a place of absolute chaos that defies the orderly curves described by Einstein. We are left standing in a dizzying hall of infinite mirrors, watching the two greatest theories in history reflect everything but a unified truth. Nod your head slightly, feeling the solidity of the chair and the ground, and consider how strange it is that the foundation of your world is built upon such a mathematical fracture. Everything you touch is made of atoms that follow rules that simply refuse to acknowledge the gravity holding you down. It is a profound paradox that remains at the very centre of our search for the ultimate nature of existence. Deep within the heart of this mathematical divide, physicists have long searched for a theoretical, massless particle that might act as the primary messenger of the gravitational force. This elusive entity, known as the graviton, is suspected to carry the signals of attraction between masses, much like photons carry the energy of light. If we could find it, we would finally have a physical bridge between the solid world of matter and the ethereal curves of space. Surprisingly, despite our most advanced detectors and powerful colliders, this ghostly particle has never been seen by any instrument in the history of science. It remains a mathematical ghost, a necessary but invisible piece of a puzzle we're still struggling to assemble in the dark. The force of gravity is so weak on the subatomic level that detecting a single graviton might be a physical impossibility for any current civilization. If we were to look closer at the interactions between atoms, we would find them dominated by electricity and magnetism, while the graviton remains a silent, non-participating observer. We are looking for a whisper in the middle of a screaming hurricane, trying to prove the existence of the particle that makes the whole world heavy. Until it is found, our understanding of the universe will remain a beautiful, incomplete sketch of a much deeper reality. String theory attempts to reconcile these two distinct and warring realms by proposing a radical new foundation for all of existence. It suggests that gravity is not a traditional force or a simple curvature, but arises from the complex vibrations of tiny, one-dimensional loops of fundamental energy. These strings are so infinitesimally small that they would appear as points even to our most powerful microscopic tools. By changing the frequency and pattern of their vibration, these loops can manifest as any particle in the universe, including the elusive messenger of mass. If we were to look closer at this elegant idea, the universe begins to resemble a grand musical instrument where every bit of matter is a specific resonant note. Gravity, in this view, is simply one of the many harmonies played by the fabric of reality itself. This structure requires the existence of several extra dimensions of space that are curled up so tightly we can never perceive them directly. We are living on the surface of a multi-dimensional symphony, unaware of the complex vibrations occurring just beneath the threshold of our senses. It is a dizzying, poetic solution that turns the cold equations of physics into a beautiful and intricate piece of cosmic music. Loop quantum gravity offers a competing, equally dizzying perspective, suggesting that the very fabric of space-time is not a smooth, continuous sheet at all. This structure proposes that space is actually constructed from tiny, discrete, and interwoven loops of gravitational influence at the smallest possible scale. If we were to zoom in far enough, past the atoms and the subatomic particles, we would discover that the void is not empty. Imagine the dizzying feeling of staring into a hall of infinite mirrors, and then realize that each mirror is a single, discrete loop of space-time. This theory implies that the universe is not a stage, but a collection of nodes and links that create the illusion of distance and volume. It is a granular, digital reality that suggests the void is just as structured as the stars that inhabit it. Surprisingly, some physicists propose a daring explanation for why the force that holds the stars in place feels so exceptionally weak compared to the other fundamental interactions of nature. While a small kitchen magnet can easily lift a paperclip against the pull of an entire planet, gravity requires the mass of a world just to keep your feet on the floor. This theory suggests that gravity might actually be leaking out of our familiar 3 dimensions into unseen, curled up higher dimensions. We only experience a tiny fraction of its true power, a faint, diluted echo of a much stronger force that occupies a more complex, invisible geometry. If we could step outside our 3-dimensional slice of reality, we might see gravity as a titanic, overwhelming influence that dwarfs every other force in the cosmos. In our world, it is a gentle, pervasive whisper, because most of its energy is being spent in realms we can never touch. Softly acknowledge the feeling of your own weight as you rest, and realize that you are being held by a force that might be vastly more powerful than you can imagine. We are only seeing the shadow of the true gravitational giant, a small and manageable portion of a much larger, multi-dimensional masterpiece. It is a humbling thought that the very anchor of our lives is merely a leak from a deeper, more energetic universe. The cosmological constant represents yet another profound mystery, acting as a strange and repulsive form of anti-gravity that is actively pushing the empty spaces of the universe apart. Observations of distant galaxies reveal that the expansion of the cosmos is not slowing down under the weight of its own mass, but is actually accelerating at an ever-increasing rate. This invisible pressure seems to be built into the very vacuum of space itself, a dark energy that works in direct opposition to the attractive pull of mass. This structure of reality suggests that the ultimate fate of the universe is not a collapse, but a grand and final dispersion into nothingness. We are living in a brief window of time where the stars are still close enough to see and study before they vanish. The cosmological constant is the invisible hand that is slowly, relentlessly tearing the tapestry of the heavens apart. Information swallowed by the ultimate abyss creates a deep and troubling paradox that challenges the very foundations of modern physics at their core. According to our current understanding of gravity, the specific details and history of any object that falls into a black hole seem to be permanently lost to the universe. If a book falls into the dark, its words, its atoms, and its unique identity appear to vanish from the record of existence forever. However, the laws of quantum mechanics strictly insist that information can never be truly destroyed, only transformed or hidden from our immediate view. This contradiction, known as the information paradox, suggests that our understanding of either gravity or the nature of information itself is fundamentally flawed. We are left staring into the dark center of the abyss, wondering if the universe possesses a memory that even the crushing weight of a singularity cannot erase. Some believe the information is stored on the surface of the event horizon, encoded in a complex multi-dimensional pattern of radiation. This would mean the abyss is not a trash can, but a highly efficient library of everything it has ever consumed. It is a mystery that forces us to question the permanence of the past and the true nature of the cosmic archive. The holographic principle boldly posits a reality that is even more surreal, suggesting that our entire 3-dimensional universe, including gravity itself, might be an illusion. This theory proposes that all the information contained within a volume of space can be mathematically described as existing on a distant 2-dimensional surface, just as a flat hologram on a credit card can produce a deep 3-dimensional image when hit with light. Our solid reality might be a projection. If we look closer at this possibility, the very concept of depth and distance becomes a complex mathematical byproduct of a deeper, more fundamental plane. The gravity that holds the planets and the stars might be nothing more than the way information is organized on the boundary of the universe. We are the inhabitants of a grand cosmic projection, a three-dimensional play occurring on a two-dimensional stage in the deep dark. This structure of existence would mean that the solid world you're resting in right now is a beautiful and convincing simulation. Your body, the floor, and the distant sun are all pieces of a larger, flatter truth that we're only just beginning to perceive. It is the ultimate hall of mirrors, where the reflection is so perfect that we have mistaken it for the source. Despite being the very first fundamental force we intimately experience as children, feeling the comforting weight of our bodies before we even learn to speak, gravity remains the least understood force in the cosmos. It is the only one of the four fundamental interactions that refuses to be tamed by our quantum equations or unified into a single theory. We can calculate the motion of the planets with godlike precision, yet we still cannot explain why mass has the power to bend the void. Gravity is the silent, pervasive mystery that defines every moment of our lives and every corner of the sky, yet its true source remains hidden. It is the force that created the first stars, the force that anchors our atmosphere, and the force that will eventually decide the fate of all things. While we have mastered the electricity in our wires and the light in our screens, the pull of the ground remains a profound and ancient secret. As you settle into the final stillness of this moment, acknowledge that you are part of a mystery that spans the entire history of space-time. You're held by a dark and heavy grace that we are still trying to name, a quiet power that brings the stars and the dust back home. Gravity is the beginning and the end of our journey, the ultimate guardian of the universe's most enduring and beautiful secrets. Gravity is not merely a mechanical force that pulls dead matter together, but the invisible living poetry of space-time itself, connecting every atom, star, and galaxy in a single, unyielding cosmic embrace. Gravity is not merely a mechanical force that pulls dead matter together, but the invisible living poetry of space-time itself, connecting every atom, star, and galaxy in a single, unyielding cosmic embrace. This quiet room is the final harbour for your journey, where the massive laws of the universe resolve into a simple, heavy comfort. Awareness drifts down toward your toes, noticing how they feel as they surrender their weight to the soft fabric. The arches of your feet and your heels are no longer required to fight the downward pull of the planet. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to respond to this total absence of effort. Feel your calves and your thighs becoming heavy, sinking deeper into the supportive surface of the mattress. The large muscles of your legs are softening, releasing the last traces of the day's movement into the quiet dark. Deep within your hips and lower back, a profound sense of stillness is beginning to take root. Your spine is finding its natural relaxed curve, supported entirely by the foundation beneath you. The weight you carry is no longer a burden to be managed, but a gentle anchor that holds you securely in place. If we were to look closer at your hands, we would see your fingers curling naturally into the palms, perfectly still. Your forearms and upper arms are growing leaden, melting into the blankets with a slow and steady grace. Every joint is opening, and every tendon is loosening as you drift further away from the world of action. Let the tension drain from your shoulders and your neck, allowing the pillow to catch and cradle the full weight of your head. Your jaw is unclasping, and the small muscles around your eyes are smoothing out into a state of total peace. The rhythm of your breathing is the only movement left, a slow and cooling wave that fills your chest and then recedes. The fabric of the sheets feels cool and smooth against your skin, providing a soft boundary for your resting form. This blanket is a warm cocoon, keeping the stillness of the room at a comfortable distance. Every breath in is a quiet, refreshing gift of air that fills the lungs without any effort. Cold air in the room is still and dark, creating a perfect environment for your mind to drift into a deep slumber. Observe the way the shadows settle in the corners, undisturbed by any light or sound. The world outside is far away, leaving only the soft texture of the pillow beneath your cheek. Drowsiness in your limbs is a signal that the day has truly ended and the time for rest has arrived. Every exhale is a letting go, a release of the last thoughts into the fading edges of your consciousness. The blankets are thick and soft, wrapping you in a layer of absolute safety and warmth. Your rhythm of pulse is slow and steady, a quiet heartbeat that marks the passage into sleep. The pillow is soft and welcoming, absorbing every lingering worry and every final thought. Everything is exactly as it should be in this small and peaceful world of fabric and air. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.